So, hello everyone. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Jobs of the Future Emerging Technology Roundtable. I'm Tracy Raissis, your host and moderator for this session. In our fast-paced and ever-changing world, we find ourselves at the nexus of a technological revolution, a convergence of emerging technologies such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, and augmented and virtual realities. It's all reshaping the fabric of our society and our economy. Our roundtable discussions are meant to explore these remarkable emerging technologies and their synergies and transformative force. From financial services and healthcare to connecting and enhancing communities, we discuss how they are empowering entrepreneurs to build new ventures, tackling complex societal challenges, and driving positive change on a global scale. From, uh, from financial and healthcare, et cetera. We're also discussing how this directly impacts current jobs and the skill set needed for the jobs of the future. And people in all of these industries are very concerned, and we take a positive spin on our discussion to talk about what's happening now, what we think will happen, and how to deal with it going forward. Each of our panelists brings a unique perspective, and I'd like to start with introductions. So let's start with Danny. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently working on.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me, Tracy. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone for having me here today. I am Danny, and I am originally from Pakistan. So I'm an expat in the country. I am currently in the United Kingdom, working as a higher educationist. So I've worked for 5 different universities in a very short span of time. My background is in careers and employability. So the career services of the universities, basically, which talks about jobs which the students can get and go into the marketplace, and a very strong connection to the world of work. So currently, I've been in all roles in a career service, from a careers officer to a careers consultant to a careers manager, now the head of the service. So and I nearly worked for the round, I would say, 18,000 students in these 5 6 years that I've been here in the UK, in the various capacities. And basically, I think currently I am one of the leading persons in the UK who just doesn't talk about AI. I believe AI should be talked about, it's fine, but AI should be something you should play with, something you should try, and you should help other people use every day if possible, and then let them see if it can help them or not. So I go and usually attend sessions where people just talk about AI, but I think in some of the other sessions that I do, I make sure I always show. I just don't tell them what to do. I show this is the capacities of AI. So, and I've always been like that. And that's my little introduction for you, that I am a person who uses AI, helps other people how to use it for their benefit.
Jimmy, what about you? Tell us a little bit about
Hello,
yourself.
everyone. My name is Jimmy Nguyen, and I am from the United States, but live a very global life these days. I actually was born in Vietnam, but raised in the Southern California area after my parents left South Vietnam at the end of the war in 1975 and brought our family to the United States, which informs a lot of my career and life decisions, as we'll talk about. I was a IP and digital technology lawyer for 21 years, based out of LA, but working at national US law firms, and was a partner at 3 different law firms during my 21-year career in law. And I represented everything from startup technology ventures to some of the biggest corporate conglomerates in the world, Amazon, Microsoft, Uber. And being in LA, a lot of the entertainment and media industry, from the major motion picture studios to the MPAA and many other companies like that. That's what led me eventually around 2015 and 16 to the Bitcoin and blockchain world. So I left legal practice in about 2016 to dive into that world as a business executive, fairly early, not among the earliest, but compared to what, people are doing now, jumping into the trend of it all. This was fairly early when it was still fairly fringe. And so I was CEO of a blockchain R&D firm based out of London, and then led an entire Bitcoin competing blockchain ecosystem. Long story, there's competing chains of blockchain, of Bitcoin now, to scale the blockchain for bigger enterprise and other utility. And so I was president of a global organization that led one competing ecosystem of Bitcoin, designed to drive the scaling of it to bigger use. And I did that for a number of years and left that role 2 years ago. And now I'm a entrepreneur, investor, board member, chairman in a portfolio of ventures across the world that tie into digital currency, blockchain, some AI, metaverse, Web3, and many other emerging tech fields. Finally, I'll note that I, especially given my history as an immigrant refugee to the United States, have been called upon a lot to drive technology growth in developing countries. And I spend quite a bit of time in countries such as Vietnam, where I'm from, Pakistan, Nigeria, and others to help governments and other business executives lead the growth of technology there, as well as education. And most importantly, finding ways to drive not just investment, but job opportunities, career opportunities for the younger generation in these developing countries that are very educated and very interested in all these new technologies.
Thank you. Welcome both. So you both have a very broad spectrum of experience, and you have a very broad view of what's happening right now. Can you give us just some idea of what's happening now, big picture? What are you seeing as the current trend? And let's start with Danny.
Perfect. I think nothing special is happening if you ask me. This is how the world works, Tracy. I think new technologies, new tech is always coming. There was Bitcoin before that. You know, I was in a conference 2 months ago in Zurich. So there was one professor who used to work for Google search when it first came out. So it said that when the Google search when first came out, the whole world was as worried as they are right now around generative AI. So they were feeling the same stuff, ethics, morals of Google search, libraries will be obsolete. We won't need librarians, we won't need this. But the world moved on, people moved on, people knew how to work with Google. People thought, okay, it's fine, let's learn to live with Google, whatever it is. Similarly, generative AI, all these new technologies, this is part of the natural evolution. This is how the world operates, right? So I think what is happening is humans have become more risk averse over the years. I don't know why, or they always have been like that. The only thing is that the rate of obsoletism is much quicker now than it was before. So basically, it took 10 years to change something. Now it only takes us a month or two for something to change and evolve. So maybe humans need to learn to be more agile. You know, I always give this example of, I don't know if you've read this book called Who Took My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. It's such a lovely, it's a very tiny book. It's a booklet kind of a book. And it's amazing. I would recommend the audience to go and check that out. Who Took My Cheese? Which talks about humans. But the analogy is mice. And basically that if something happens with you, if somebody takes your cheese away, you don't sit down and cry. You do not become resistant to that. You move on in search of something new and better. And it gave basically examples of 4 different mice and how they behaved when somebody removed their cheese. And cheese being for humans, our comfort zone, the way we like to work, the world we live in. If something changes, two kinds of responses. Either you could just move on and learn and upskill, or you could just sit and cry. I think that's where we are right now. We are being a bit too resistant in the world, but I think it's inevitable. Things will change. All we need is a positive attitude.
So your viewpoint is that this is innovation, and there's always been innovation, and there will continue to be innovation, and it's really our perspective on it. Okay, all right. Jimmy, what are your thoughts on what's happening today and where we are in general?
Sure, I have various perspectives on this because I live a 360-degree career, as I call it, in terms of working with the startup entrepreneur community, young people who love new technology as an opportunity to leapfrog, especially from developing countries, into catching up with the rest of the world, as well as on the flip side with governments and people from legacy industries like law and banking and financial services, or even the entertainment media industry, where I come from a generation that's decades ago, where my peers are excited about new technology, know they need to learn it, but are also afraid of it. But that is not new, as Danny said. I agree with him that what has happened in the last 10 years in particular, but particularly the last 3 to 5, is the rapid escalation of the pace at which new technologies are impacting jobs, the world and the user community. And I attribute that to a couple of things. One, the rise of blockchain and cryptocurrency, in some ways, not necessarily for the best things, which is people, unlike the dot-com boom of the 90s and 2000s, where you had to build a startup venture, get to a certain amount of revenue, user growth, traction for it to be sold and have a liquidity event, right, to make money. In the crypto world, what has been unfortunate has been people's discovery of the ability to easily create new tokens, chains of their own, as a mechanism just to raise and make money quickly. And I have no problem with that. People, I have no problem with people doing things to make money, but that has increased rapidly the attention on Web3, blockchain, cryptocurrency ventures in a way that I think has distorted movement towards just making money quickly as opposed to figuring out how to use those technologies for useful things. Because of that, people in the legacy industries have started saying, hey, wait a minute, should we be embracing these new blockchain, crypto, Web3 technologies? We don't really understand how they're useful to our legacy businesses. You have the young people saying, hey, let's go in because we can make money quickly and there's jobs in this new industry. So that has, I think, accelerated the number of applications, projects, ventures, and the appearance of a whole job and career industry in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and Web3 world. And I think there is a big industry there, but a lot of it, in my view, is a bit distorted. Secondly, that has influenced what's happened in the AI and metaverse, XR related worlds, where people have seen the rapid escalation and advancement of investment and people entering the Web3 and blockchain space. The rise of ChatGPT, OpenAI, and related applications, I think, took what has been developing for decades. AI is not new. The efforts to create AI have been there for many, many, many years. But for the first time, the public could actually see it work and work in a way that they found useful. And that combined with this rapid attention to getting ventures out and applications out quickly in the blockchain Web3 world has led to lots of investment, lots of developer interest in the AI world in particular. I think that has caused more concern about career futures more than anything else, especially the rise of generative AI, the ability to create content, whether it be text content like words, news articles, poetry, scripts for the movie industry, photographs, images, video now, even software. That is the thing that I think has caused the most concern about career futures. But I think it also provides some of the best opportunities for the future. So basically the trends I'm seeing are just a faster escalation of the use of technology in ways that cause people concern about their career futures.
All right, so both of you have kind of touched on some themes around perception, incentive, interest, and what's causing or enabling this fast-paced boom and progress. What, from your standpoint, are some of the challenges that are facing people today when it comes to that adoption? Danny, let's start with you.
Thank you, Tracy. I think with regards to challenges, I think number one was that that obviously humans need to learn to be more agile. That's the biggest challenge they're facing because they do not really want to leave the comfort zone that easily, and that's the problem that I see. And then another problem that I see is that a lot of people are using. I'll specifically talk about generative AI right now because that's the biggest thing in the market right now. That's in the hand of consumers, and that's actually changing lives and livelihoods and jobs and all those things. The biggest problem I see and challenge that I see is that a lot of people use it and they do not acknowledge the fact that they use generative AI or artificial intelligence. Hence, that creates this hidden thing that they have to hide. Maybe it's something they should be guilty of, or it's cheating or something. So that creates barriers for other people to use it. So half the time, I see great uses of AI in the industry where I work in, even the workplaces that I assist with. But people do not like to share. They think it's something they need to keep it with themselves, but that's not the case. So if you do not become the AI champion with your organization, it's not going to help other people. So this habit of humans, when they find something nice out and they're like, let's just keep it to ourselves and let's just give this benefit to ourselves and let's not share it with other people. That's such a big challenge. We see that. I go on, do workshops like crazy in all these institutions that I go in. But the problem is at times a few people will use it, but then they'll be like, let's not share it with anyone. But that's the biggest challenge I see. And the second biggest challenge, that you need to be persistent when you use these technologies. This is not perfect, right? So generative artificial intelligence is not perfect, and especially when it's in the hands of when the technology is in the hand of a user, a practitioner who is not from the background of computer science or artificial intelligence. So like a consumer, like a student who's studying, like a teacher who's teaching, or a person, a bank person, a person who works in finance, a person who works in the architectural field, a person who does not know technology much but wants to use it. Those people need to be persistent with this technology. What happens is, if you start to use it once, it won't give you the answer right away. It won't work the way you want it to work. You need to learn how to make it work for you. And that become the biggest skill. Right now, what I believe is that people who just use these technologies in a googling way, the way you would use Google, like what is this, what is that, help me with this, you would always get very very basic answers. But if you know how to embed this into your own workflow and use this like a consultant who's always there for you, that is the future basically. So humans need to learn to be more agile. That's the challenge. Number two being that they need to acknowledge the fact they use it. It's not something you use Google, you tell anyone I use Google, right? You do share this to people. Why don't you share about these technologies? And lastly, that you need to basically learn how to use it in the best way possible, be persistent with it. So these are three challenges I see.
So regarding the persistence or not showing, not telling people that you're using it, I think there's a huge stigma associated with using it. People are being punished for using it, even in the smallest way. Here in the US, there have been articles of college students that have been suspended because the professors suspected them of using ChatGPT or something to even check their grammar. I think I can't remember what the name of the program is that actually checks your grammar.
Grammarly. Yeah.
Grammarly, yes, thank you. We're not very original with names, are we? Grammarly. But yeah, so I think there's a stigma associated with that. And that's why so many people are perhaps afraid to admit that they're using it. And so that stigma is getting in the way of people accepting the use of it. Let's move on to Danny. From your background, you may have a different perspective. What are your thoughts on what the challenges are?
Oh, you're referring to me.
Jimmy, sorry, did I say Danny? I meant
Yeah, no
Jimmy.
worries. Well, the challenges are different depending on who you're talking about. You know, it's like anything in any part of the world, it's about audience analysis. The challenges are different for young people who are students now and learning new skills and getting into the workplace. Their challenge, they have an easier time at learning new technologies because it's all fresh to them and it's exciting, and they haven't learned a legacy way necessarily of doing skills and business. But their challenge is to adopt these new skills and fit into legacy industries, unless they go directly into some of these startup tech ventures. But for them, I think it is much less of a challenge. The bigger challenge is for people like our generation, right, who I've had an almost 30-year professional career. So I grew up in the legal world in the 90s, where we were barely getting email and still getting faxes with stacks of paper on my office chair when I came back from lunch that were physical paper faxes. So the rise of, we'll just take the legal industry, of artificial intelligence has made it faster and easier to do things such as document review, which is a horrible, painful task in the litigation world, going through, thousands and thousands of pages of documents to see what may be relevant to a particular lawsuit. Now that can be ingested and analyzed much faster with things like AI software tools. It has made faster things such as drafting basic repeat contracts, which can be very boilerplate, or finding some of the best clauses from a library of work product that exists in law firms, something we used to always talk about. I was a partner in firms with 1,600 lawyers, and we all had different work product on a firm software database record keeping system, but we're not looking at it all. I don't know what my partner in another office is doing, but our collective mind share was difficult to access. AI has made that much better, but the challenges are, let's just be really blunt. People past a certain age resist learning new skills, are afraid of them, especially in some industries which are very tech averse, law being one of them, banking, finance, and I'm the same way. I've come to that age where I work in technology, but now, my nephews and niece who are like, 18, 20 years old make fun of me for, how I don't know all the functions on my smartphone. So that's a big challenge, is just, the fear. The other challenge is institutional. As you pointed out, sometimes organizations don't like the adoption of new technology, that resist it. But I predict in the future that all major employers will have probably subscriptions to not just AI, but other technology and software systems that enable the completion of job tasks faster, and that'll just be expected. It will change the nature of time you spend. I don't think it will get rid of lawyers. I don't think it will get rid of bankers or accountants, but it will reduce the time that is spent by them or some of their staff on lower level tasks. And I think that is a good thing. It means that there will be some jobs that are sacrificed, or that the persons who have those jobs now need to reshape what they do or what they're capable of doing from a career perspective. So for example, paralegals, legal secretaries, people who do the basic document review and input of data into legal software, that may get automated in the future. It will not replace lawyers, but it will, I think, replace the need for people who do some of the lower level tasks that support lawyers, and change what young lawyers do. Just like it will change in the entertainment and media industry, content production, where we may need fewer people who do graphic design. We may need fewer video editors. We may need fewer people who help with live location shooting, because a lot of that background, the scene can be generated now with digital AI. So we're all seeing that, and that's concerning to people. And the challenges are to figure out how to use the technology so that you can be actually part of the advanced wave of retooling your career and job capabilities to the new technology. But the biggest challenge, honestly, is that it's scary, and there are not enough places to go to learn the new things.
So you touched on my next question, actually, which was about what happens to some of these jobs. And I was actually going to bring up a paralegal because I know people that are paralegals, and I know that the job differentiation between lawyers and paralegals. Do you think that this will actually make their work product higher level, let's say closer to that of an attorney? Now again, paralegals are, there's a very specific line that paralegals cannot cross, but will it elevate them closer to that line is the question. Will it make their work product even more sophisticated? It's already sophisticated, but even more so sophisticated is my question.
It should, but let's be direct here. My feeling is about generative AI and all of the software analysis. It does not replace human judgment. But for paralegals and the legal industry, it really depends on what type you're talking about, because there's so many different types, right? There are paralegals who support litigation, who are often the ones reviewing these huge boxes and troves of documents. So it should speed up the document analysis and lead to faster and more relevant discovery of documents that can help the lawyers fight a case, right? Because if you're looking at a room full of documents that were given to you by the other side, and you have to spend hours doing it, someone's got to, in the past, manually go through those things and say, aha, this document is relevant and we can use it to, make this argument. That should be sped up with the software analysis and AI tools that are being generated for the legal and other industries. And paralegals can play a big role in that. But it still requires somebody to have the human judgment in addition to AI LLM analysis to say, oh, I agree, this is relevant. And so it's understanding that. For the paralegals who generate documents, right? They're not supposed to do legal work, but let's be honest, a lot of law firms and some especially solo small practitioner law firms use paralegals for those things. It can help paralegals generate documents more quickly. Some of the litigation documents that we need, standard document requests, preparing a summons, it can fill in a lot of things and automate a lot of things so that the paralegal can then review it, turn it over to a lawyer for, final review and analysis. The biggest area where I think it's going to help people who are support team members to licensed professionals such as doctors, accountants, CPAs, even bankers, is for creation of things such as draft contracts, a draft will, a draft, a document to change property title. All of the documents that we use as business and professionals and in business and government settings that have to be created that are repeat, that have unique terms but are generally boilerplate. That is where I think generative AI will both potentially replace a lot of jobs, but hopefully help support team members, such as the assistant at a doctor's office or the paralegal at a law firm, generate more quickly documents that their boss, their licensed professional they support need.
So that's the analytical part. I'd like to switch over to another part of your background, and that's the entertainment industry. How will this impact the creativity of the entertainment industry? We're talking music, we're talking movies, we're talking just that entire industry.
Well, there's a whole huge ongoing debate and concern about that in the entertainment media industry. And I spent, over 2 decades representing and working with so many of the people here in Los Angeles in that industry. There was an entire set of union strikes, as you know, over the last year about the impact of generative AI and how union members in, for example, the Screen Actors Guild should be compensated in this new world. The bottom line is generative AI can be used to create content, whether it's photography, video content, music now, that can replace a lot of people. And I mean both people in front of the camera and behind the camera. Because, for example, I just tried out a generative AI music application the other day to generate a few, short music tracks for a video. And in the old days, you'd either have to go to a direct stock photography or stock music site where someone has actually composed that and is selling that, or get someone to make something custom for you. For headshots, I recently got some new headshots a few months ago. And I went to a live person to do it, but some of my friends were telling me, oh, there's this new app that you can just upload 5 selfies of yourself and it'll generate a fairly custom quality headshot for less money. And I have friends in the industry who are involved in production who now are concerned that if you're a director of photography, director of lighting, your job may not be needed as much, because now a lot of entertainment content is created digitally, or we as an audience member are more accustomed to seeing not just CGI, but the fact that we know when we're watching on Netflix that 2 people in a scene are in front of, some digital screen that is replicating, Venice, Italy at the moment. But we're accustomed to that. We're used to that. And so that means that the rise of generative AI will make it far less expensive to produce content. I think it will increase the quantity of content, as we're already seeing from the streaming services over the last 5 years, right? Look how much television there is now because of Netflix and Amazon Studios and Apple TV than there was in the old days of just a few broadcast television networks. There's a far greater amount of content. Some people would say it's less quality content, and some of it is, some of it is not. But we'll see an increasing amount of content produced with fewer people at faster speed, and that is concerning to people who work in the production side of the entertainment and movie industry. And the other big issue that we need to talk about is the dangers of generative AI in the ability to authenticate who someone is, whether content is real or not from the source. We're seeing that obviously in the political realm because of the election, where there's people saying that's a fake ad, and that's not Kamala Harris, that's not Donald Trump. And sometimes the videos are so well constructed, it's hard to tell at first. And in the entertainment and media industry, we have that problem for news organizations in terms of how they need to verify and authenticate evidence and content that they see out in the world. And then in the entertainment side of the world, it means that you can create content without live actors, or you can replicate actors. Such as Bruce Willis has allowed his image now to be used because he's not able to, professionally work in acting at the moment, given medical conditions. Now you can just replicate him. And while in the past that seemed very inappropriate, for example, when Carrie Fisher passed away, there was debate about whether to create a digital image of her for the final Star Wars film, since she was supposed to be a featured performer in that. And they did not do that directly. They sort of reconstructed it from past footage. But in the future, creating entertainment content with an actor and their image, their voice that is digitally created, that's going to happen. And that means if a change in what are the career roles for both behind the camera and in front of the camera professionals.
That's a lot of questions, a lot of questions. Yeah. So Danny, what's your perspective on this? You're seeing it from more on the student side, the educational side. What are you seeing?
I think students are loving it. So everything that you mentioned around the media industry, films, music, when we go and talk to students, they say this has expedited and given us something to do our work much more quicker. So they can generate prototypes now. They can generate very short reels and stuff for which are like demos, demonstrations, small demos. If they want to create them, it saves them a lot of time. So they are experimenting. It's so funny that we are trying to learn and they are living it. So because some of the school children I go and talk to, they're using it now. So by the time they graduate, they'll be very easy. They would be very, I would say, happy to use these tools in their workplaces and in their workflow. They already know how to do that. So I think students are using it to generate demos, more short video reels. The best use of this is storyboarding. Students are making storyboards out of this. Some of the media students that I go and talk to, again, some of the law students, they are now trying to embed that within their assessment work, within their assessments and assignments that they do for the university. So they are open to doing so, all of those things. Well, one of the points that you did mention around, union strikes and all those things, I think I'm a borderline Gen Z, so I'm 32 years old. So basically, I haven't seen much of those things when the previous industrial revolution things were happening, but I'm pretty much sure strikes and these stuff has always been there. There have always been opposition of new technology and people going forward. This is the natural course of the world. This is how this would happen. And all we need to understand is how technology can help you and how you should be using it. So basically, yes, you are right, Jamie, in that point that there are concerns around actors not being needed, musicians not being needed. You know what? I have a different thought on it. One of the students shared this thing to me. He said that what if an actor goes in to some of these platforms and there's another app which comes up and say, if you're an actor, come to us, we'll record you all these you could say 1,000 lines or 500 lines in the way you talk, your expression, your face, and that's your IP. And then you could sell that, and then the videos, artificially generated videos, could be made using your data that you have allowed somebody to, and then you would get royalty out of it. Just like somebody gets paid to act live, you go and record yourself, give all the expressions. If you think you're a good actor, you give everything in those videos that you pre-record, that then they can use as data to train the model to generate a movie with you being the artificial intelligence version of yours in the movie. Similar is the case with instruments. You could come up with, for example, people play instruments, so you could come up with some new riff on a guitar. This is my riff. You get an IP on that, and then other people who use it, even if an AI generated platform uses it, you get some sort of royalty on it. So I think these things, media industry can work like that. That you could come up with new techniques, the way you want to do something, and then you can get some IP on it, get some protection on it, and then obviously AI systems can still use it to generate things. I think this is one solution going ahead.
So many questions come to mind. Control over your IP. Will you continue to have control over your IP in perpetuity? Who's to say that someone could take your likeness and image and put you in a movie that you would never do? Okay.
And
All
that
right.
that's a
So,
big concern of actors
Yeah.
and talent, which is if when they usually sign on to do a television show, film, right? The producer, the content owner, typically has rights to that footage, including their likeness in that footage. And if that footage can be used for creation of other images, video content of the talent without necessarily their approval or control, that creates issues. The other issue we've seen in the legal industry is a battle over whether or not generative AI created content, let's say a graphic novel, some pages from a graphic novel, or poetry, or portions of a film, whether that's eligible for copyright protection. And the courts in the United States, as well as some other countries, have been starting to confront that because the copyright laws were written at a time where it just assumed that all content being created that was submitted for copyright protection was human created. And a couple of courts in the United States have rejected, as well as the U.S. Copyright Office, rejected registration and copyright eligibility for portions of, let's say, a graphic novel that were admittedly AI generated, as opposed to the human created portions. Where that line gets divided in the future is going to be very, very difficult.
and that goes right back to what Danny said earlier about people not wanting to admit that they're using.
Can I address that quickly? I think
Sure.
that's because the problems that have come up with use of AI have come up in situations where, in the academic world, where the purpose of education is to get people to learn to do things on their own, and teachers, educators have a challenge now in figuring out how much to allow students to use the tools that are available to them, such as generative AI, to complete coursework without disclosure. It's all about disclosure. I think if people use it and it's disclosed, then there'd be less of a problem with it in certain academic tasks and functions. In the professional world, there have been even a few court cases where judges have not sanctioned, but criticized lawyers for using AI, for example, to generate portions of a legal brief and cite cases for reference without then going to check whether or not that is actually a correct citation or reference. It'd be like submitting an academic paper with a lot of footnotes and not checking that the footnotes are actually relevant and correct because you just used AI to generate them. And courts are not banning the use of AI to generate legal briefs, but what they're starting to say, a few judges have started to issue sort of standing orders saying, if a lawyer submits a brief to me that is partly AI generated, you need to disclose that. And then you also need to verify that you, as a human lawyer, given your law license and professional experience, have checked and verified the accuracy of what you're submitting to. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. Danny, it sounds like you're agreeing.
Yeah, I'm definitely agreeing with it. I think disclosure is key here, and that helps in more adoption as well, adoption of these technologies. Coming back to that point around, that adoption, disclosure is required. And you did mention some of the issues around people not going and checking if the references are real or not, or some of the other students issues that students face around when they use AI. So the whole argument here is that the problem is not with the system, it's the user. So the user need to learn the system better. And I can tell you, because I use it like a lot, and quickly giving you examples, I've written award applications, got nominated 1 awards. I've written funding applications. You know how long at times grant applications are?
Yeah.
Like 3,000 words. I'm like, I'm not going to give you 3,000 words. I'll give you 500 of my own words, and then the rest of is all AI. I have been granted those grants. Trust me, when I've used AI, and if somebody just starting out with AI, the difference of output is huge. I can write an actual novel with AI and nobody can basically guess it was written by AI, because yes, if the novel is of 200 pages, I will write 50 of them. See, now that's the difference. The problem is when somebody writes 1 page worth of content and just constantly ask AI, can you please write the next page? Okay, the next chapter, and the whole book is ready. Now that is very, very generic. Yes, those things should not be granted any copyright, because then those things are very, very generic and would have been highly inspired by some of the other text it is trained on. But imagine if somebody writes 50 pages worth of, because humans are great, right? Humans are great with ideas. The first outline that a human generates is around 10, 12 pages of what the book has to be. I think if the human writes those things and then uses AI as an execution tool to write the whole book, it's perfectly fine, because at least that is their own idea. What it helps is to help you execute things better. Wherever you're required to write a lot, documents, as Jamie mentioned, text, where it would take a lot of your time to write that when you would write it on a processing software. It helps you save that time very, very quickly. So that's my view on this, that it's still a skill. It's still a skill to use AI in the best way possible.
So it's a
Yeah, I
skill
think it
that
just
you
requires
have to,
disclosure and
yeah.
human judgment and review, but there will be increasing commercial pressure to use these tools to speed up the process. You know, in the legal industry, I can imagine corporate clients, the big ones are saying, I don't want to pay a young associate lawyer, a first, second year lawyer, $300, $400, $500 an hour now to be drafting all the basics of a fairly routine contract. Right, you know, they're going to want law firms and lawyers to use these tools to make the work product more efficient and cost less. Just like when electronic legal research came into being with LexisNexis and Westlaw to make it faster to find cases and law than the old days where I had to physically go get the case books out of a library to find out, you know, here's a case that supports this particular argument. That became much faster with the emergence of electronic legal research databases. And AI tools will do the same thing. And while we haven't talked about it yet, there are many other technologies that will, I think, become expected and routine in the future, such as the emergence of XR, experiential reality, and not just VR, but the use of immersive technologies in the professional and industrial and business settings. That's going to come into play too, because it will reduce the need to travel specifically to places to inspect an oil field, to inspect a hotel or a farm for the purposes of whatever you're needing to do, to look at something from an insurance claim review perspective. That can be done virtually using XR technology. While that may present challenges, I think all of these new things will become expected in the future, much like now people get upset when you don't respond to an email in 10 minutes. When in the beginning, people were just reveling at the magic of, wow, I got an email from someone across the world and I didn't have to get a physical piece of paper.
So you both bring up some very good points. You bring up skills, you bring up expectations. So now you have a work environment that's expecting certain work product to be faster and more efficient, higher quality. But then you have certain institutions that are not allowing the use of it. So where do you learn these skills? So what skills do you need to learn, and where do you learn them? So let's start with Danny.
Perfect. I think obviously I have been doing these workshops myself. I shouldn't be doing them. I think the thing is, higher education, universities, colleges, they need to learn to teach. First of all, the academics and the staff members need to learn how to use this. And for that, obviously, if you ask me, is is learning generative AI some sort of a difficult skill? Is there a learning curve? Trust me, there isn't, Tracy. So basically, if you know how to talk to humans, do you know how to talk to humans? Everyone knows how to talk to humans. And if you can type and you know how to talk to humans, this is the skill you require. I usually give the example of a consultancy scenario. Okay. So if you want AI to do something for you and you think you want it to use AI for certain tasks, imagine you have just got a consultant, a human consultant sitting in front of you. Imagine in a real world scenario, if you hire a consultant, the consultant would sit with you for 1 or 2 hours to understand who you are, what your problem is, what you really want, the problem statement. They will ask you a crazy amount of questions just to understand what you exactly need, right? And then it would give you some sort of a solution. If we give that kind of respect that we give to a consultant to AI systems, that's basically how you use AI. So simple one thing, if you know how to talk to humans, talk to a friend, literally. This is the analogy I give in schools when I go and do these workshops. If you know how to share things with your friends and you say, this is my problem, this is what I've been through, share things with AI the way you do with humans. And that is it, basically. For example, you're working with an intern. I use AI for everything. You know that those grant applications that I write, that doesn't happen with one prompt. So I prompt again and again. It's chain prompting. I keep on prompting. I see what works. I see what doesn't. Imagine if I've hired an intern, okay, a PA, a personal assistant to help me do that. Will they do the thing that I want them to do in the first try? No, right? So just like I would say, human, lovely PA, can you go and make these changes? They'll go back. Oh, lovely. Now can you do this? There you go. Just the way you will work with humans, you can use AI. But humans can get sad. Humans will might not work the way you want to. Would be dependent on their skill level and capability. With AI, we don't have these problems. So first of all, you need to understand it's not very tough to use this. There are two kinds of people in this world. I always say, Tracy, people who love AI because they have used it, and then people who hate it because they haven't used it at all, or they've used it once. They're like, because their prompt was so bad. They're like, it doesn't work. It's not nice. And I think in terms of you said where they can go on their laptop today after this session, they can just go and experiment and talk to it and see the value for themselves.
So you talk a lot about personal responsibility. Is there any responsibility on the part of the institutions or the employers to help the individual upskill?
For sure. I believe, and people are doing it. So universities are slowly and surely starting to embed. The career service that I manage, we have started sessions on the world of work use of AI. So we empower students how to prompt, how to use it. I've embedded AI in some of the assessments in the academic end of the university. So introduced AI buddies, how to use AI for reflection. We are on it. Organizations are on it. Yes, we have been a bit slow. Higher education systems have been very slow to learn to implement and use this AI tool within their teaching and their day-to-day work. Organizations are also doing it because I go and do sessions for organizations as well. So they are hiring consultants. They are trying to build this kind of capability in their graduates, in the people who already work for them. I've done sessions for senior leaders. How do you use AI as a senior leader, as a C-suite? There you go. As an executive, how would you use AI? How would you, for example, from analyzing financial statements to making strategy documents to making proposals to making business cases, it can do everything. And I go and show them those things. There you go. But slowly but surely, they are building. Yes, it is. The onus is on the human being themselves, the person themselves. But then again, I guess the institutions, employers, higher education, they are on it as well. Yes, slow, but they're doing it.
Jimmy, what are your thoughts on that space?
So let me address just specifically the workplace, leave aside sort of university and because that's a whole different category. In the professional workplace, absolutely, I think any responsible company, organization, government agency needs to be implementing programs as part of continuing education to train their team members and employees in relevant use of not just AI, although this conversation is focused on AI, a whole wave of new technologies that could impact their jobs, such as use of blockchain to change data management and verifiability of information, or as I mentioned, XR, experiential reality type and immersive technologies. But the challenge in the workplace will come down to a very simple thing: technology procurement. Most major companies, organizations are going to have some influence control over what technology tools their employees use that have downloaded on their work laptops and computers, right, for security reasons as well as licensing reasons. Because if you're generating work product for your employer or using software that you may or may not have paid for, that creates issues. So that what is going to take longer is the path to the technology procurement decision makers at big organizations deciding what specific software applications and tools, whether it be AI or non-AI, can be used by their organizations. Because there are many AI applications, especially generative AI applications today and coming out faster. There's, of course, a few main ones. I think the big challenge for someone trying to learn all this is, well, which one do I use? There, of course, we can all go play on our computers with a particular application such as ChatGPT or Wally or for image generation. The question I get often asked is which one to use, because there's always a new one. And so I think that's the most difficult thing for busy professionals, right? Who, unlike students in university, have less time to be just experimenting and playing around. They just want to find out what is the most useful thing. But the most useful application may change from quarter to quarter, given the speed at which technology is moving. And then what applications the organization allows them to use for the purpose of generating work content, that takes longer for those decisions to be made when we have technology moving at a faster pace. So I agree with Danny. You should play around with some of these tools and applications I have. There are now even technology ventures, edtech ventures that specialize in this. One of my friends in London has a venture called Mindstone, which is a professional upskilling online platform, which has video and written content, but is now using AI to help tell you some of the skills you need to learn more, given your sort of past history and experience and what you've watched so far. And so there are tech ventures that are trying to curate content to help professionals upskill in this time of technology advancement. So subscriptions to those are helpful, but the big challenge is, what do you pay for? I'm going to be, really honest here. What you pay for as an individual and what you pay for as an organization, when we're in this mode where, what you pay for today may be not the best thing in 6 months. And so it takes being willing to probably try out some free products and being willing to pay maybe short subscription periods, a month or 2 or 3 at a time, for some paid products to test them out, and then make recommendations to your organizations about what you think is the best application for your company or organization to use. And hopefully the CTO or technology procurement professional will agree.
So I want to move on to my last question, because we only have a few minutes left. And it's my crystal ball question. So if you had a crystal ball and you could see into the future, what's coming? So let's start with Danny.
Perfect. I think what's coming is the age of multi-potentialites. I just love this word since the time I've learned it.
Say that again.
Multi-potentialites.
Okay.
The people, just like polymaths, this is a very old word, polymath. So people who have multiple potentials and they work in multiple ways, I think that is the future. That's where human race is heading. That irrespective of the fact you have done a degree in film studies, you should know a few other things as well. If you have done something very niche, you have something very narrow within one particular field, you have done a specialism, you need to learn some of the adjacent fields, some of the other tasks that you can do as well in addition to your main job. So it's basically applicable to anything, any profession, that you cannot now just be a specialist. That's a very bold claim, that you cannot just say, or you could be one of the other things. This proverb, jack of all trades, right? I've changed it a bit. Jack of all trades, master of some, not none. So you could be jack of all trades, master of some. That's the world we are trying to live in now, the world of multi-potentialites. And quickly touching what Jimmy said, like how would they decide which platform to buy? When you buy your smartphones, when you buy your laptops, you go and research which platform is the best, which software or which smartphone is the best one. Exactly the thing you have to do for these software platforms as well. And the future for organizations, as Jimmy said, which one they should buy, the future is tech stack. I think one platform cannot cut it right now. It's not an MS suite kind of a world that we are going into now. It's not MS 365. I think it has to be a tech stack approach that a lot of institutions have taken over the years. For example, some of the statistical softwares, you have to use those softwares. You don't just use Excel for those statistical analysis, those advanced statistical analysis. So you need to take a tech stack approach, that you need to give them access to some of these platforms in some capacity. There are platforms right now that gives you access to all of the large language models under one roof. So something along those lines. So the rise of multi-potentialites is going to happen, and the future is all about AI tech stack.
Thank you. Interesting. All right, Jimmy, what are your thoughts?
I foresee a future where we have a accelerated huge amount of content and data created, which is already what we've been seeing, the exponential rise of data and content creation that will explode with generative AI, as well as some of these other new emerging technologies. That also means we will have a future world with a lot more generic content and data, and it will drive increased value in what makes humans unique. And that is something that I'm a big believer in. My last name is pronounced in the US like the word Nguyen, because people can't pronounce Nguyen. And I'm a big believer in empowering the potential of people to win by being uniquely who you are. In a world of new technologies, which makes it so much faster, easier to create content and data of all forms, what will become most important is the human judgment, ingenuity, creativity, decision-making about which of that content and data to use that will make it special, to make it stand out, whether it's entertainment content that we all want to watch on our phones or televisions, whether it's the legal brief that has the creative arguments that win the day and convince a human person, whether it's a political ad that wins an election. It all will still come down to human ingenuity, and perhaps more than ever in our history, that will be more important, more valuable, and more key to deliver wins in career and life.
Excellent. Both excellent points. All right. Well, with that, I think we're done with our discussion. I mean, there's so much more that we could talk about, but we're limited in time. So I've learned a lot today, and hopefully the audience who will be watching this video in the future will learn a lot also. I learned a new word, multi-potentialite. I love that. I also have a book that I need to follow up on, Who Took My Cheese? But on top of all of that, there's that viewpoint that you bring, Jimmy, regarding the human value, that we're not all going to be replaced by AI and robots, that there is a certain amount of wisdom and creativity that humans bring to the table that are going to continue to be critically important. So I think I can't end on a better note than that. So I want to thank both of you for joining us today to talk about emerging technologies and the future of work, etc. So thank you for joining, and thank you to the audience for listening as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right.